Hey, so first video at my garage at home. Hopefully do a few more here because I'm planning on bringing all my engine work here. The garage is only small, but I have a drawer full of measuring equipment and all that stuff from one of my old jobs. I did my apprenticeship at Holden at the factory in Fisherman's Bend, and 3.5 years of that was engines only. Worked with their V6, did a few V8 things, and their 4-cylinder that they made. And yeah, my 3.5 years of my apprenticeship was putting together and tearing down engines and measuring all sorts of stuff and checking for quality, and then running engines on an engine dyno, running them on. We used to have this thing that we called an idle buggy. It was just a stand that could run the engine without having to be hooked up to a trans or anything like that. Yeah, so I spent 3.5 years doing that. Fault finding, got sent to Adelaide a few times to check engines and did all sorts of stuff. It was really cool. But it means pulling apart an engine for me and putting it back together is not a very hard process. So tonight we've got a RB25 turbo short motor here that we picked up. I just want to basically pull the bearing caps off and have a look at the bearings to make sure it's alright. The rest of it looks good. I'll show you the bore and stuff and my idea of what to look for. Some things I had to learn outside of my job at Holden, because obviously we were dealing with new stuff all the time. Like, even when I went and worked on cars, the oldest car we worked on was like a year old. Most of the stuff we worked on was pre-production, so it wasn't even being made yet. Yeah. So certain wear and tear things I had to learn from elsewhere. I had some good supervisors and stuff who worked in the real world doing engines and that taught me all the stuff to look for. So yeah, so we've got the short motor here. Start pulling it apart. We're just gonna check bearings, put it back together. If they're all good, if they're not, we'll get some new ones. If I've got to get bearings, I'll probably get it set and get it honed. So because if I have to put bearings in, may as well get it honed. Alright, we'll get started. The dogs are going crazy. So here we have our motor in special bags I got from Holden, which have a chemical in them to prevent rust. So this one I picked up to just put back together and throw in the ute actually, which is just here. But got a different plan for the ute, so I'm not going to use this anymore. So we're going to repurpose it to one of my friends and give him a nice turbo motor. But yeah, as you can see, gasket was still on. I've pulled the head off a while ago, which is why it's a bit dusty across the top here, as you can see. But yeah, keep going. Try not to squash a dog while we're doing it. So this one's going into a drift car. So we're going to get rid of a bunch of the water lines from this side, and I'll just point out which ones we're going to get rid of. I've removed most. I'll rotate it over. Normally, head manifold, and you've got some pipes connecting here and going around the back and all sorts, so we pulled off all that stuff. That's to the radiator. This would normally be the bypass out to the back, which would then connect to the heater. So we don't need this anymore. So we're going to block off this. We'll see the condition here, but I'll probably just put a rubber cap over it. You can buy them, and a rubber cap over this back one, and then a little bypass one here. We're just going to squeeze up and weld it closed. And then it'll mean on this side of the motor, and for the most part, you'll have top and bottom radiator hose, and that's about it. On the other side, we'll have the water in and out for the turbo. Yeah. Alright, so here's the bottom. So we're going to check the con rods. They're all there. I'm not going to check the mains. If there's any markings on the con rods, the mains will have a marking because the oil gets supplied this way, like so from main then to conrod. So if there's any material go through here, it'll get to here as well, and vice versa. You'll see the mark. If there's marks here, 100% there's marks here, and same across all the different mains. But a good sign for the engine is that it's easy to turn, and that's like one finger, me putting no effort in. So that's a good start already. We'll move on. I'll crack these with the gun and then move on. So I got the gun. I have no issue using a gun for undoing stuff, but I refuse to use a gun to do up anything, with one exception normally, depending on the motor, the crank bolt. Normally crank bolts are like 200 plus Newton meters, so as long as you hand start them, you should be right to use a gun, but everything else is hand tools only. Now here's a tip: if the rings are stuffed already, when I undo this, the piston will drop on its own. So that means at least the ring pressure is okay. So it turns out I'm lacking in the tool department at home for hand tools because I take them all to the workshop, but I needed a wooden end to tap that guy down. Just that little bit will do. Lift him up. Okay, this is the first one out. So we wipe the oil off. We can see here. So you're looking for any gouge marks of the steel. So any gouge marks in the bearing itself, which this one doesn't have any, which is good. Can you see the changing color through the middle there and up on that edge? And then it'll be the same on this edge here. This edge here, through the middle there, and through the top. So that's just wear. It's nothing special. The fact that it's all grey means it's not even bad. What would happen is that it'd start turning a copper colour because underneath is copper. So that's actually quite good wear and tear. But if this was just say out of a normal road car, yeah, high end of thousands of Ks. But yeah, that's not even bad. We'll keep going. I wouldn't change them, especially because we're going to just a simple build. There's nothing wrong there. That's normal wear and tear. So that'll last a whole bunch of time longer. So what I'm going to do is put that one back in and then move on to number two. Number two, same sort of wear. No real marks, exactly the same wear. Almost looks identical. So I'll move on. Again, identical wear, number three. As we get further to the back, that's where the oil supply starts to slow down. We're doing really good because it's the same wear again. That's, what are we up to? Number 4. Number 5, same again. So we got to number 6 and we found our first trace of, our first trace of any sort of mark. Grab the light. I don't know if it'll pick it up. It might not. I'm trying to shine it across. Oh, you can sort of see it there. I might draw an arrow and point at it, but I can see it just on the back of the camera. There's a very small mark there. Looks like, I reckon it would have gone through very early in its life because it's not a groove, it's just a mark, and it seems to have worn down with the wear and tear on the bearing as per normal, which means that metal went through a long time ago and then back out again. So quite possibly could have been from like first assembly, from straight off the production line. Little piece of swarf in the engine goes through. But yeah, that's all 6, all good. So that's all the bearings pulled apart and checked, and they're all good. As I said, if there was anything go through the mains, it would then go to the conrod, because that's the way the oil flow goes. And there's not a mark on any of the bearings except for that number 6. And as I said, it looks like it was from like really early on in its life, because it's smooth, so it's not a groove. You can just tell that something's gone through there, and it's worn down as normal. But here we've got the top of the motor. Now I'm going to flash on number 6 so we can see number 6 better. So there's light on it. So a couple of things to look for. See how it's stained, but there's no real build up on it. The marks you can see are in the casting. Alright, that means it has been running perfectly well, and also not a lot of kilometers. Carbon buildup happens kind of no matter what, especially in stock stuff. It's just how they're tuned. But the fact that that is basically no buildup whatsoever is amazing. The fact that you can see the numbers in it is crazy. I worked for a few manufacturers, so I can take a bit of an educated guess. Number 2 will be the size of the piston for the bore. So there's these other numbers, Z, V6, 21U and 04 could mean a few things. One of them will probably mean which machine did the machining. One will probably be a part number to say it's a turbo or a non-turbo. I would probably go with the 21U. I'd probably go that's the machine, that's the model, so turbo piston. And I would say that that's the weight. An 04, an 05, an 05, an 05. The Japanese companies tend to try and match weight. Makes for reliable motors. So I'm having a look at the different bores. It's very hard to show on the camera. And you're not meant to actually use a light from the top. You got to try and reflect it from the bottom. But what we're looking for is a severe lip. You can probably see the dark patch here. A severe lip in that section. Because that's where the ring stops, and that's where, if it was detonating, it would start melting the block off there. But looking at the pistons, that's not happening. Then you look for the cross hatching that everybody knows. Now you should expect to see much less, because it's done Ks. And that's what I'm seeing here. So you're looking for marks like we were looking in the bearing, because that means metal's gone through at some point, because obviously oil gets squirted in here. But they're all wearing even. As far as a motor, I paid, I think I only paid $50 for it. It's in really good condition. So from here I'd pull the pump off and clean it out. I'm not going to get anything done to the block. It's in too good condition. I can clean off the gasket material and stuff. Done that many times. I'll probably pull the water pump off just to have a look, make sure it's alright. It feels alright, but water pumps are a funny thing that if you let them sit, even if they're not that old, they might just decide that that's it, they're not going to work. So you're better off having a look and then replacing it now while it's super easy. And we'll replace both belt tensioners with a new belt kit. Ow, I squished my finger. And then new thermostat. So that's a quick inspection of a block. What to look for. It's pretty simple. It's kind of like you know what you're looking for by looking for it. The internet will tell you all sorts of different things. I have my experience from blowing up motors and looking at what happened. The stuff at Holden, working on the motors, we'd get stuff returned back that had blown up, and we'd know what caused them. So we could go, okay, if a bearing looks like this, it's because of lack of oil, or if it looks like this, it's because material went through and grabbed it and spun it. So it was good. And then we'd test oil that came back with the engines to see how hot it got and what contaminants are in there and all that stuff. So I learnt a lot there. But I really like doing engines. It's fun. heaps of people are scared of them. That and wiring people are scared of. So yeah, but quick video. Go through a short motor. Now it's just clean, change a couple of bits. We'll have to pull the motor out of the other car because the head will go in here. The head I'm going to send off to get cleaned. It's just way easier because there's so many little bits and pieces. And, yeah, they can just take it and clean it, and they'll probably deck it as well, which gives me one less surface to clean. That's it for this one. I'm going to do some more videos from here and at the shop. So yeah, mostly engine stuff here and probably building most of the ute here because it already has a cage and I have a welder and everything here. So yeah. Alright, thanks for watching and catch you on the next one.